Since its debut in 2004, the Monster Hunter franchise has captivated players around the globe. Players step into the shoes of a hunter in a world teeming with majestic, terrifying, and awe-inspiring creatures. But the allure of Monster Hunter goes beyond its thrilling, technical combat and the satisfaction of taking down massive beasts. Many of these creatures feel strangely familiar through the design choice of naturalizing these monstrous entities, asking, what if these behemoths from legend were living, breathing animals? So get your hunter rank up as we dive into the fascinating parallels between the monsters of the Monster Hunter universe and the mythological creatures of our world. The appeal of Monster Hunter's world, familiar yet fantastical. At its core, Monster Hunter is about more than simply tracking and slaying monsters. It's about immersing yourself in a world that feels primal, dangerous, and alive with wonder. The creatures you face are the beating heart of this world. They may be fantastical, but there's something deeply familiar about them. Whether it be a Shadowcat-like creature or a Dune-inspired Mongolian deathworm, these monsters feel like the embodiment of the creatures we've read about in myth and legend. Beings that live on the edge of civilization, that represent nature's fury, and that stand as symbols of fear, power, and even divinity. But how exactly do the monsters in Monster Hunter echo the mythological creatures of our world? Let's start with the fan favorite, and the mascot of the franchise, Rathalos. Rathalos, the myth of the dragon. Now, Rathalos is far from the only winged wyvern in Monster Hunter. There are over 25 separate species, not including subspecies. But it is one of the most iconic monsters in the series. Rathalos, the king of the skies. Its sheer power and grace make it one of the most formidable monsters in the game, and it's not hard to see why. Rathalos draws directly from one of the most enduring mythological creatures across cultures, the dragon. Dragons are almost universal in mythology, appearing in legends from Europe to East Asia. In European myths, dragons are often depicted as large, four-legged, leathery winged beasts, adorned with scales and spikes. Rathalos fits the description, although it can be more directly compared to wyverns, the dragon's two-legged cousin. Wyverns are more commonly found in Mediterranean myths. The oldest creatures outright referred to as winged dragons are brought to us from Greek mythology via the tale of Jason and the Argonauts. Medea, daughter of King Aedes, aids Jason in his quest for the Golden Fleece. In that story, at least according to Euripides, Medea is aided by Helios, her grandfather, through the gift of a golden chariot driven by the aforementioned winged dragons. Our first depiction of any such creature. Rathalos borrows from many depictions of dragon-like creatures across the globe. In folktales, the blood of dragons is known to contain mystical properties of longevity, but in some tales they have acidic or poisonous properties. In the poem Beowulf, there is a creature referred to as a draca or even as a worm. It's said to have a poisonous bite and breath. This story may be where Rathalos and Raytheon get their poisonous claws. Rathalos is usually seen as the first major difficulty spike in any given Monster Hunter title, and for a good reason. It's territorial, aggressive, and it wields fire like a 7th century Byzantine Empire soldier. This blend of traits makes Rathalos more than just a simple copy-paste dragon clone. It becomes a living representation of the power and mystique that dragons have held over human imagination for millennia. Lagiacrus, the Leviathan Lord. From the skies to the seas, let's talk about one of the fiercest monsters that debuted in Monster Hunter 3, Lagiacrus, known as the Sea Wyvern, the Azure Lightning, and the Lord of the Seas. The Leviathan class is known to be the top predator of its given environment, swimming through water, sand, or even lava to take down its prey. With its speed, strength, and ability to create whirlpools, Lagiacrus harkens back to several serpentine sea scoundrels found in mythology. Sea serpents are found in many cultures. They're so ubiquitous that they have their own classification in Chaos Conf, or the combat myth, Drakenkampf. This is used in reference to a widespread mythological motif that involves a culture hero battling a chaos monster, often in the form of a sea serpent or dragon. For example, Lotan from the Ugaritic language was a servant of the sea god Yam and was defeated by the storm god Hadad in Mesopotamian lore. Lotan may have inspired the sea serpent Temtem as dictated in the Syrian seals of the 18th to 16th century BC, which finds a later reflex in Leviathan. Leviathan, where Lagiacrus' class name is taken, is referenced in many books of the Hebrew Bible. In each iteration, Leviathan is described as an embodiment of chaos, threatening to eat the damned. In Christianity, Leviathan can also be used as a depiction for the devil, attempting to eat God's creatures and threatening the upheaval of his creation into the waters of chaos. Lagiacrus' whirlpool attack may have been taken from the myth of Scylla and Charybdis of Greek mythology. Charybdis was a sea monster living under a rock that created whirlpools capable of dragging ships into its watery grave. Scylla was her counterpart, pouncing onto the ships, devouring any sailor unlucky enough to be within her range. Both Scylla and Charybdis lived opposite of each other in a narrow channel, forcing sailors to avoid one and be bombarded by the other. Lagiacrus, a blend of cultures and tales, embodies the essence of the sea serpent myth. The immense power of the ocean, fear of the deep, and the awesome and terrifying power of the creatures that reside within. Kirin, the divine beast. While our last two beasts present as nightmarish, on the opposite end of the spectrum we have Kirin, one of the most ethereal monsters in the series. Unlike the hulking leviathans or terrifying wyverns, Kirin is elegant and graceful, a creature that seems more at home in a dream than on a battlefield. Its design draws directly from the mythological creature of the same name found in Chinese and Japanese mythology, the Qilin or the Kirin. The earliest mention of a Kirin comes from the poem Feet of Lin, which is included in the classic of poetry and dates back to the 11th to 7th century BCE. They are seen as sacred and awe-inspiring, a gentle animal, taking care to trample not even a single blade of grass. Its beauty is only matched by its rarity, said to appear with the imminent arrival or death of rulers, or in times of world peace. Kirin generally have Chinese dragon-like features, similar-looking heads with 2 antlers or horns, upward-flowing manes and beards, with scaled bodies resembling an ox, deer, or more commonly a goat. In modern times, this description has been fused with that of a unicorn, with Kirin sometimes being used interchangeably with unicorn. Another surprising animal with ties to Kirin comes from an unlikely place. In his 15th century voyage to Somalia, Zheng He, an admiral and diplomat, brought 2 giraffes. Upon landing in Nanjing, the emperor mistook the giraffes for the Kirin from legend. Still today, it has had a lasting influence, with the word Kirin being used for both the mythological creature and the giraffe. Kirin's presence in Monster Hunter adds a sense of the mystical and sacred, reminding players that not all monsters are forces of destruction. Some are embodiments of natural beauty and divine power. Conclusion: the modern mythology of Monster Hunter. The creatures of Monster Hunter aren't just bosses to defeat. They're reflections of the fears, hopes, and wonders that humanity has expressed in mythology for thousands of years. Each monster taps into something primal, whether it's the fear of the unknown, the awe of nature's power, or the dream of taming the wild. Just like mythological creatures, the monsters in Monster Hunter represent a connection to the natural world. They remind us that we're small players in a much larger ecosystem, one where we're constantly striving to understand and coexist with forces beyond our control. In many ways, Monster Hunter has created its own modern mythology. Its creatures, while original, are deeply rooted in the myths and legends that have shaped human history. Whether they resemble dragons, earthbending worms, or divine beasts, the monsters in this series evoke a sense of wonder and fear that mirrors the stories passed down through generations. And just like the heroes of old who faced down dragons and giants, the players of Monster Hunter step into a world of myths come to life, where the line between legend and reality blurs, and the hunt for the next great beast is always just over the horizon.